Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1122B, and today's date is November 8th, 2016, and the title of the episode is, It's Time to Hold the Government Accountable for Its Actions. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, as these elections move forward, and depending on who is voted in, it really doesn't matter, because we have to remember the individuals who are controlling the country. They are the shadow government. They are the people behind the curtain. They're the non-elected individuals that are actually running the entire system. It is not the president. The president is a puppet. The president follows orders. And if that person does not follow orders, what do? They get rid of that person. And what we need to do is we need to hold the government accountable. Coming from the Rutherford Institute, John Whitehead, he lays out the principles for a free government. And when we look at it, we can see that history teaches us if the people have little or no knowledge of the basics of government and their rights, those who wield government power inevitably wield it excessively. After all, the citizenry can only hold its government accountable if it knows when the government oversteps its bounds. Now, Americans are very easily distracted because, as study after study shows, they really don't know their rights because their elected officials no longer represent them. Americans have been brainwashed into believing that their only duty as a citizen is to vote. The citizenry has failed to hold government officials accountable to abiding by the Constitution. And the American governmental scheme is sliding ever closer towards a pervasive authoritarianism. Big government has grown bigger, and the rights of the citizenry has grown smaller. The following principles, well, they're a good starting point to understand what a free government is. And we know that power corrupts. Well, that's an absolute. The drafters of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, well, they knew one thing: distrust all of those who hold government power. James Madison said, and he's the author of the Bill of Rights, all men having power ought to be distrusted to a certain degree. And what we see right now is that we need to control the government. We need to hold them accountable for their actions. And the purpose of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the way they set everything up is to limit governmental power and to ensure that the government performs its basic function to preserve and protect our rights of we the people. We can also see that no one is above the law, not even those who make the law. If all people possess equal rights, the people who live under the laws must be allowed to participate in making those laws. By that same token, those who make the laws must live under the laws they make. However, as we can see today, those government officials, they believe they're above the laws. They make one set of laws for us. They have no set of laws. And they believe that they're royalty. They believe that they should be getting all these perks, that they should have the best pension plan. They should have the best health insurance plan. They should have golf courses, restaurants. They should be driven around in limousines. They should be taking to place on private jets. And we've seen this before if we go back in time. It's called royalty. And these people are not royalty. These are the servants of the American person. And those who created the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, they wanted a separation of power. They didn't want a single authority to be entrusted with all powers of the government. This is why they divided the government into three co-equal branches: legislative, executive, and judicial. And we can see right now is they did this on purpose. They didn't realize that the executive branch would draw power by aligning themselves with corporations, aligning themselves with the central bank, aligning themselves by creating executive orders and memorandums where they dictate certain things. And what's very interesting is that the framers feared that Congress would abuse its powers because they had the ability to tax people. Now, Congress, they are influenced by foreign governments, corporations, lobbyists, by giving them money to do certain things. So we see a corruption in the executive and we see a corruption in Congress. And really what we need to do is get rid of all of this where people can, or I should say corporations, foreign governments, central banks, they should not have the right to give government officials any type of money. It's almost like working in a financial institution with the SEC where you can accept certain funds for doing certain things. Well, with the government powers, they should receive absolutely no money from any group, any corporation, or anything like that, because it's easy to bribe the officials. And we can see right now that the people are supposed to have a voice by sending their government and electing a representative to do their bidding. But today we don't have that because most of Congress, the president, well, they don't work for the people anymore. And the people, well, they're to blame too. The people have gotten lazy. They believe the government is doing everything in their best interests. They haven't been checking up on the government. They're believing the corporate media. Whatever they say, that must be the truth. The corporate media has been bought out by corporations, by the government, and they don't do any type of investigating reporting. They don't hold the government accountable anymore. The people do not hold the government accountable anymore. I mean, think about this for a second. We had the person who was heading up the NSA lie to Congress when asked if he was spying on the American people. He said, no, we are not. And then we come to find out that, yes, he was. And the people should have been in an uproar, demanding his resignation, demanding a complete overhaul, and getting most of the individuals out of power. But instead, the people did pretty much nothing because the corporate media reported it in a completely different way. Obama came out and said there's going to be incredible reforms, and everyone just believed that, and nobody really checked up on it. And what we really saw was they did absolutely nothing where they didn't reform anything. They actually made it worse. Actually, they're spying on people even more than they did before through a different method. And this is what we need to do. We need to hold the government accountable. And we're coming in to a completely new administration, and the shadow government is still there. The central bank is still there. This is where the people need to come together and say, you know something? We need to clean house. Forget these elections. This whole thing was a farce. We need to go deep inside to see who these individuals are, what they are doing there, and dismantle most of what we have right now and change the rules and the laws for our government officials, where they cannot accept money from corporations for their campaigns. They can't accept money from central banks, foreign governments. They're not allowed to accept money, period. That's it. The only pay they get is what the government gives for that job. And their number one interest is to work for the people. There's no favors to lobbyists. There's nothing like this. And we need to change how they submit bills. One bill, one issue, no riders, nothing attached, nothing like that. There are certain things we need to change. And we need to do this to the executive branch, where the executive orders, the memorandums, those need to be laid out completely different. They're not dictatorial powers. And we need these agencies, the CIA, the NSA, the FBI, they need to be dismantled because they have violated the rights of the people. And the people need to monitor these agencies. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done here. And the only way to do this is to hold the government accountable, call them out on every single thing, every single day. Because if we the people just sit back, we the people, they're going to remove the rights because no one will be looking. Just like they taxed the people when they said they weren't going to tax the people. Just like they told us that the Affordable Care Act was going to be affordable. Just like they said they were going to stop spying on the American people, and they increased the spying on the American people. Just like they said there's going to be no boots on the ground in Iraq, in Syria. And there's boots on the ground. Everything they've told us has been one gigantic lie, and it's time for us to take back this country. Now, out in Ukraine, we see that the United States is pointing their fingers at Russia, saying that they're responsible for everything that's been going on there. And Moscow right now is rejecting accusations that they are holding back the peace process in Ukraine. We can see right now this is what the U.S. government central bankers do right before they have a major offensive. They start pointing fingers. They start saying this is where the problem originates. And we can see right now they've been planning this for quite a while in Ukraine. And very, very soon we can see that they're going to be pushing some type of an offensive. They're already doing it in the Middle East. They're already ready to push Russia into a war because this is what they need. Out in Syria, we see the Red Cross. They are having a very tough time evacuating injured and families and children. And we can see right now that there's lack of security guarantees within this area. The moderate rebels, the terrorist groups, they are continually attacking the Red Cross, not allowing them to do their job. And we can see Syria is a complete mess. Iraq is a complete mess. Libya is a complete mess. Sudan is a complete mess. Yemen is a complete mess. It's all a complete mess. Right now, U.S. officials, they're split over the future of Raqqa. Part of the U.S. officials are saying, listen, we're going to leave this area once we rid the area of terrorists. And the other one is saying, no, we're going to be staying here full time. Remember, we're in Syria illegally. Nobody has a problem with this. The United States government central bankers invaded a sovereign country. The people should be up in arms, screaming and yelling that we broke international law. But nobody says a word. But everyone's concerned about voting. And we know these votes that everyone is making, they're completely manipulated. I know everyone's looking at the voting and saying, oh, look, this person's switching my vote. This area is switching my vote. The vote manipulation, the majority of it, is coming from the back end where you can't see it. They're not going to have people there switching votes. Maybe they're doing it because some people think that they want their candidate to win, so they're switching votes. But the government, the shadow government, they're doing it from the back end because this is where they can really make a difference, behind the scenes. And we talked about fraction magic. We talked about reprogramming the system from the top. And this way nobody knows what's really going on. We see Russia's Admiral Kutuzov aircraft carrier and their nuclear-powered guided missile cruiser and 2 destroyers. Well, they're in the Mediterranean. And it looks like right now they're going to be starting their bombing of Aleppo. They're going to be bombing the outskirts of Aleppo. They're going to be using the Caliber cruise missiles. Most likely they'll be launched from submarines. And we can see right now that they're going to be hitting Aleppo very hard. And the United States government central bankers, they understand this. They realize this. We see the terrorists in Syria, which is controlled by the United States government central bankers and the coalition forces. They've been using chlorine gas in the Aleppo offensive. reports are coming in that the terrorists are using makeshift type of bombs. They fill them with chlorine gas and they launch them, and they hit the Syrian government troops and they hit civilians. But again, they don't care at all. We see right now, during the election day, a town called Murmansk in Russia was hit by something. The power station blew up. 300,000 people or so are left without electricity. And we understand the United States government central bankers, they breached Russia and they said they were prepared and ready to use a cyber attack on Russia. Now, did they do this to start the cyber war? We have the elections going on. We don't know right now. Reports are coming in that they're investigating of what happened, but you can see the entire area just all of a sudden got hit. Now, this is a very strange coincidence that it just so happened on Election Day, November 8th. And we know that the U.S. government central bankers have said, listen, we are prepared and ready to cyber attack Russia if they interfere with the elections. And like I said, if the elections are not going in the way that they want, they will use a cyber attack. Now, did they do this to prepare for the next step? We don't know, and we'll have to wait and see. We see that the U.S. military and intelligence experts, well, they're gearing up for some type of cyber attack. They have all hands on deck, and they're prepared and ready. We see NATO is out there saying that the risk of election tampering is at 33%, and they are warning Russia not to do anything that would affect the voting. And we can see they're continually pointing the fingers at Russia because they want this election to go their way. They want it very close. But again, if something should happen where the popular vote pulls out and it goes towards Trump, this is where the problem comes in. In Ohio, they have the National Guard on standby and in position to handle any type of cybersecurity threat. Now, what are they going to do? I don't know. And what's very interesting about all this, they're continually asking Trump and his party, will you concede if you lose the elections? They keep asking this question. Do they know something we don't, that he already lost? Because that's what it's starting to sound like. Because it seems that they don't want him pointing the finger at a rigged election. They don't want him saying, well, wait a minute. This is very strange because I had individuals doing an exit poll. These do not match up. Or he was out ahead in the popular vote and the Electoral College gave it to Hillary. They want his answer. They want him on tape, on video. This way they can go back and say, you said you were going to do this, because they don't want his party looking for a rigged election. Because, again, this is not going to help the establishment. This is going to make it worse because they don't want people looking into how these systems actually work. And we see Angela Merkel is out there saying that Russia may interfere in Germany's election next year. So it looks like the NATO countries, they're all jumping on the bandwagon that Russia is going to interfere with elections because these individuals want to keep their power. They don't want to give it up. And they will do anything they have to keep their power. So we're heading down a road where everything is going to go completely haywire after this election. It doesn't really matter who's in office because the shadow government runs everything. And their mission is still the same. Collapse the economy, get us into war, blame it on another country. This was not our fault. And their mission is still a go. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.